Hello, welcome to today's presentation. My name is Dr. T. Wu, and the topic of discussion is Beyond PMP. It is designed for those who may already have the PMP and wish to explore program and portfolio management. It is actually also for those advanced practitioners, probably who came into project management as an accidental project manager many years ago, who may not attain PMP, but really doesn't need it. And yet, in order to compete effectively, you want something that is more than just PMP. And so today, we're going to talk about program and portfolio management. My name is Dr. T. Wu, and I'm the CEO and founder of PMO Advisory. I have about 25 years of experience managing professional projects. In some ways, I grew from the shop floor all the way to be the head of a global project services for one of the big four tax audit accounting firms. I'm also a professor at Montclair State University, China Europe International Business School, and I occasionally give talks at other universities and even serve on their advisory boards. I am certified in PMP, PgMP, PfMP, and PMI-RMP. And my background is in engineering, chemical, industrial, philosophy. I have my MBA, and also I have my doctoral with a dual concentration in international management and management itself. I'm an active volunteer with many organizations, including PMI New York City, PMI New Jersey. I am also a core team member, a voting member, a team lead for the U.S. Mirror Committee on the International Standard Organization. And I'm also on the advisory board of Stevens Institute of Technology, also board member on other foundations like New Century Education Foundation. What I hope to impress is not necessarily that background, but is that I bring a broad view of project management from a hands-on practitioner's perspective, from an executive perspective, from an academic teaching, learning, research perspective, as well as being an author and a writer. So I hope to bring you perspective from many different angles to look at this program and portfolio management. I have contributed to a number of PMI publications as well as certifications. And here you can see some of the recent guides that we have published: the Portfolio Management, 4th edition, Risk Management Standard, as well as others. I also published my own book, with a couple published by my company, Xperi Press is a company I created for that publication, as well as by PMI, in this case, Implementing Project Portfolio Management, as well as my most recent book, Optimizing Project Management, which is CRC Press. So for those of you that's interested in project management, please look up one or more of my books. So today, the agenda is a straightforward one. I want to make an objective case why some of you, and perhaps many of you, should consider moving beyond just the PMP. Now, there is a question, which is better if I move beyond? Is it program? Is it portfolio? We'll go through some of those highlights. An analysis of the qualifications around PMP, PgMP, as well as the challenges and pitfalls as you prepare and take the exam. And then finally, I'd like to end with some of our course offerings. So let's make an objective case, why you should consider PMP. And in short, there is a lot of demand. The way I see it is the pace of change is increasing in our world. And this is fueling the entire project management profession. And I don't think I'm saying anything new. Here, this graph shows the recent evolution of internet-based technology. And you can see the number of years it took a particular technology to reach a saturation point, let's say around 80%. So here on this graph, you can see, for example, that automobile took somewhere around 70 years. Telephone, also around 70 years. Clothes washer took almost 80 years. And yet mobile phone, to hit 80%, took less than 20 years. And this pace is something we feel, something we pay attention to. For example, how many of you watch Apple launch every September with a new iPhone? It is something you already anticipate. And this graph just shows another view of essentially the same information. The growth of PMP corresponds to this rapid change in our society. When I was a PMP, became a PMP in 2003, I estimated that there was about 7,500 of us in the world, give or take. Today, I just read the number. It is approaching 1.1 million active PMP. And the key word is active because there's many of us that actually retired. So if you draw the line, it is very, very steep growth. It's something very sharp, as you can see here. Insight number 2. Today, projects are really becoming that primary vehicle for making change. And yet the results of projects are pretty poor. So you can't help but wonder, even the last graph, for example, shows this rapid increase in PMPs. So that means the world is getting a lot of attention, a lot of qualified people to manage projects. And yet the results is just not there. Here, quickly reviewing a Standish report from 2015. And I use this because the number didn't really change very much. So for example, Standish look at the successful, and this is information technology project, and they categorize it as successful, challenged, or failed. The percentage of successful project dating back to 1995 always hover around 30%, as you can see in this 5-year spectrum. And successful projects are those projects that is completed. Going to the opposite side, failed projects. Since about 1995, the amount of failed projects also barely budged, hovering around 20%, typically a little bit below 20%. And the failed projects are those projects that actually never finish. So now you have successful, you have failed, in the middle you have challenge. Challenge project are those projects that's completed, but they breached one or more of the major parameters. So the scope, for whatever reason, had to change or cut down, schedule delay, cost more money. And that bucket, if you want to call it, it really hovers around 50%. So the state of the world hasn't changed a lot from before the PMP became really popular. Right. So an obvious question I think many of us could ask, well, given that we have 1 million or 1.1 million PMPs, that ought to make a dent in how we do project. And yet from the results side, we really don't see. And this is why project professionals in the field, myself included, constantly looking for ways to how can we make our profession better, more effective, more efficient, increasing the success rate. Because ultimately, whatever failure we have, it is wasting money, time, resources. The chart on the right also shows you the success, challenge, and failed, and this is grouped by the project size. And you could clearly see as the project gets larger, grander, right, the success rate just drops precipitously. That research is echoed by many others. Here's another one for PMI from 2016. And it shows that across many different inputs, they found that out of every $1 billion spent on projects, approximately 12.2% or $122 million are just wasted due to poor performance. And here you could see some of the echoing the same numbers or at least the direction that you see from the Standish group. So for example, you could see the green bar on the top, the 64 to 62%. That's meeting original business goal or intent. So about somewhere a little bit less than 2/3 tend to meet that across this 5-year spectrum. If you look at the other ones, the pink one, the bottom one, deemed failure, it hovers between 15 to 16%. Not quite as high as the Standish, but off not by a lot, off only by 1, 2, maybe 3%. So there are additional studies that validates essentially the same information. So why do we think that projects are not improving? I think there are some fundamental things that we are wrong about project management. And one of these things may very well be in the focus of project management. So As we know, project management in many ways is focusing on the project itself. And in certain industries, such as the government industries, the project management certification is really no longer good to have. They become must-have. And here, very quickly, just talk about 5 nations and their legislation or what they're doing about project management, starting with the United States. Many of you probably heard of the Program Management Improvement Accountability Act, PMIAA. In this act by Congress passed in 2016, very bipartisan, I think 90-some percentage support from both House and Senate, really requests the Deputy Director for Management of the Office of Management and Budget to start applying project management, program management principles. And so it is the law of the land for federal projects. There are other countries, UK, for example, have the Infrastructure and Project Authority, IPA, that been examining and promoting project management for quite some time. The Hermes 5 from the Switzerland Federal Administration, the Canadians on the policy on the management of projects, and the Chinese. I was actually invited by the China government in 2018 to speak at various cities and organizations about project management. By the way, in the picture you see on the right, that's me, and I was speaking at one of their automobile manufacturer. In the crowd, there were about 500 people, and the topic was risk management. What's more impressive is you probably see a little bit on the 2 monitors on the side. One of the monitors shows the camera shots from the other facilities. As it turned out, I didn't know at the time, there were a couple of other facilities remote that was down into essentially this conference. And combined, there were about 2,000 people across the company talking and listening about project management. So you could see that project is making a great stride, even in China as well as other countries. So given all these insights, couple of other things that we see. We know projects, I think for the most part, are getting bigger, more complicated, more ambiguous. And all of that, piggying back what I said before, the project success rate being relatively low, I think one of the ways that we need to re-examine this field is really think about the program and portfolio management. Program management in some ways is still about the act of doing things. It's very hands-on, right? It's hands-on doing many different things coming together, like this picture of the plane assembly. This is where many different projects happen perhaps simultaneously, others are in various dependency states. But for the program as a whole, these group of projects, highly integrated, highly related projects, need to come together. But the other side of the portfolio is we have to do the projects, the right project in the first place. And that is actually not as simple as it seems. For example, how many organizations will actively go invest in the wrong project? Right? Chances are not, unless the management is consciously and purposely trying to destroy the company by selecting the wrong project, doing the wrong work, wasting time and money, training the company and killing the company. That doesn't really happen. It may happen in some off cases. For the most part, management, as well as all employees, try to do the right thing. And yet, they may not have the discipline to select the right investment, the right projects and program, and hence organizations suffer. So this is where I think projects, the idea of doing things, one-time endeavors, need to be expanded in a more integrated fashion to include program, as well as to do the right thing in the first place, which is portfolio management. So those are the objective reasons for moving beyond the PMP, and there are personal reasons. One, the reality is there are almost 1.1 million. This slide is slightly outdated, it says 900,000. So if you are a project manager, you want to compete with your peer, well, how do you stand out? PfMP, PgMP is a great way to do so. Some organizations put program management, I have not seen that in portfolio management, but I've seen it for program management as a part of the career growth. So it becomes their career objective. In order to be promoted to X, you need to get PgMP. So there's recognition, promotion. It may very well be a job requirement. There's also the professional side, gaining that new knowledge, new skills, new ways of organizing. I don't know about you, but when I pursue the first PMP, later PgMP and PfMP, all of my certification was somewhat defensive. Defensive meaning I didn't really need it to grow. I was already beyond that place. But having that experience and able to think thoughtfully about it requires a lot more work. So, for example, I'm not a huge fan of PMBOK because I think it's just bulky, but it did help me organize my knowledge. Now, I think it's more than 10 knowledge areas. In the latest book I wrote, Optimizing Project Management, I discussed 12 knowledge domains. But nonetheless, it helped me sort of compartmentalize all the various knowledge and experience I have into sort of this neat little framework that I can apply over and over again. It also enhanced my network with senior project professionals. PgMP, there's still less than 3,000 of us. PfMP, I think it was slightly more than 800 at the latest count. So those really matters. And if you aspire to be a chief, whether it's CTO, CIO, I do think that there is another path toward CPO, Chief Project Officers. And this is where I think portfolio manager, getting onto the business side of the project, really becomes important. And speaking for myself, attaining those certifications has immense personal satisfaction and the need for continued growth. Here's a career ladder. It's from one of my book in the Sensible Guide to Career in Project Management, where I highlighted a sort of a stepwise approach to a gradual growth from entry level to the executive. Now, in some ways, my career actually mapped to this pretty closely. When I graduated from Stevens Institute of Technology in 1994, I was a tech writer for Nabisco. And very quickly, I started becoming sort of a quasi-project administrator, accidental project manager, if you want to call it, especially when my boss suddenly left the project. I was left sort of holding the bag. What do I do? And because I didn't do too badly of a job, the director of the group asked me, T, there's some project coming down. Why don't you go manage that? And so next thing you know, you go from a document writer to become a sort of a project analyst, a junior project manager. And when Nabisco started expanding Asia, my boss asked, hey, T, why don't you go lead the training and development, setting up those training and development, I should say, in Beijing, Suzhou, China, Indonesia, right outside Jakarta, right? So that's how I became a project manager. Now, afterwards, I actually went to Accenture shortly after that. And this is where I learned really, I would say, the professional project management. Instead of me just figuring it out myself in the early 90s, at Accenture, we have, at the time, Anderson Consulting had really fabulous professional training in St. Charles. And I still remember going there to take different lessons, including project management. And so I grew steadily from project managers to senior project manager to start managing some really quite big projects. And then I managed my first major program at Consumer Reports. They were a client of mine. At that time, I was now at a consulting firm and helped to launch 10 projects, highly integrated project in this program for the relaunch of the Consumer Reports Online. And there, I started leading other projects, including working at Standard & Poor, working at other financial services, and including working on very large ERP implementation. And then by the time I reached probably about the 2006, 2007 timeframe, this is why I started really getting involved in the PMO side, building major PMOs, running fairly large portfolios of projects, and ultimately became the global director for a very large, one of the big four tax audit advisory organization. And there I managed both portfolios as well as large programs. One of the things that I learned that as you gain more power and authority, and of course insights into the project helping to make decisions, you started becoming not just as a hands-on practitioner, you become more of a thinker, more of a professional with a broad overview, and brings you closer to that chief level. Chief in organization, whether it's CIO, CTO, CEO, are responsible for entire sector of the activities in an organization. They are the chief because the buck stops with them. And I think in our world, project management, there are few CPOs. It's not very popular, but I think that's about to change. Whether people actually have the title of CPO, Chief Project Officer, or not, is secondary to the fact that more and more people are accountable for projects, and sometimes for the entire sector and line of business. So in this career path, as I see, going beyond program to portfolio, which is sort of jumping from the technical side of the project to the business side, eventually getting to the CPO. Which one is better for you? Should you consider program or should you consider portfolio? PM advisory, we organize sometimes a session that we called, an event that we call the Mega Bootcamp. And this is where we put major certification bootcamps together simultaneously. And for the last couple of years, we always had the occasional people who wanted to change. And what's interesting, because they fairly adamant when they sign up for the course, T, I want to be a program manager. I want to go to your program management bootcamp. Great. About 2 hours into the bootcamp, they scratched their head and said, maybe I should go to the portfolio one, and vice versa. So from there, we recognize that for a lot of professionals, it is not clearly evident which route is better for them, program, portfolio, and sometimes both, of course. So here in this section, I'm going to try to do my best to explain. A program is a group of highly related projects that are managed together to gain a benefit that otherwise would not be obtained if you manage the projects independently. Program management, of course, is the application of that knowledge and process and tools. And the goal is to deliver substantial benefits. And the substantial is important because, again, you're adding a layer of management. That's an overhead. There's an expense to that. So from a company perspective, it is an investment. So anytime you make an investment, especially most organizations today, you look for what is the payback, whether it's financial, strategic, competency, or something else. But program management now help the organization to have an integrated approach management to these endeavors. One thing I would add is that these projects should be highly related, not just casually related. And the reason is that through this integration management, this is where the program management could derive the most value. I often describe program management as the top of the technical ladder. This is important because program managers are still hands-on. They are the super doer who can lead large teams and deliver complex endeavors. They're the captain of its own endeavor, and they do have a high degree of autonomy and authority to direct and a significant amount of resources at his or her command. They also deliver concrete benefits to organizations by building new capabilities, successfully delivering results, finding synergies so you can achieve benefits otherwise you don't have. And for those who aspire to climb to the top of the project management ladder, I think program management is at that top, the technical side, the hands-on side. Now, for those who are more interested in the strategic and the business side, and helping organization to find the optimal investment decisions, you're already gravitating more toward the business side. And this is where portfolio management shines. Portfolio managers are project professionals, but sometimes you don't have to be exactly a project professional. I've seen a lot of good portfolio manager coming and growing from the finance side of the house. They have always played a role in project management, for example, but mostly on the finance side. But what they are very attuned to, and as well as all project professionals aspiring to be the portfolio managers is really attuned to what are the rationale for putting together a list of projects in which the organization can then make decisions. So helping to find the optimal investment is probably one of the primary reasons. But there's a lot more than that. As many of you know, in an organization that's highly political, and today, let's face it, many organizations are political, right? One of the biggest weakness, or I would say challenge for those organizations, is making decisions stick. You could imagine going to a meeting, there's 10 executives, everybody agrees some grudgingly, and let's say they agree to a decision. Walking out the meeting, probably one, maybe even more already backtracking. Others may be thinking, you know what, I'm just going to say yes, but I won't, I may not do anything to sabotage it, I'm not going to fully endorse it. Well, this is a problem on all major enterprise projects, because after all, enterprise project means that we decide to do A and not B. And people who promote B or benefit from B probably are not very happy. So in addition to selecting the optimal investment, portfolio managers are also responsible for putting together the governance, the process of guiding these decisions and implementation, as well as many other aspects, strategy, alignment, performance, so on and so forth. So this is where you get into the political side, the business side. And for professionals, project professionals aspire to be on that side, I think portfolio management is a great discipline, because it is really moving you toward that senior business leadership role. Those who can shape investment decisions, assemble governance team, manage business performance objectives. Right? You have to enjoy working at that. And having a general comfort with politics and confronting ambiguous situation. Your focus is now more on the strategic, the long term. What makes your organization really tick? What is the vision of that company that you're building toward? And the willingness to take on controversial trade-off decisions. And that's why portfolio managers often have profit and loss responsibilities. So that's the overview. You can decide which is best for you. Next, we're going to move into sort of a quick analysis on the qualifications and the current state of where we are with the PMI certification. On the left, you can see the qualification for program management. Pretty straightforward. Assuming you have 4 years of experience, you need to have, assuming you have a 4-year degree, you need to have roughly 4 years of experience, 6,000 hours of project management, and then another non-overlapping 6,000 hours of program management experience. By the way, when you do later fill out we'll get to the application, but jumping ahead a little bit, the project management experience here is quite important for program managers. I have known people who has application rejected because there's a perception that the person didn't have enough project management hours, even though it is for program management. On the right side, you see the portfolio management. And in this case, for PfMP, you must have a minimum of 8 years of professional business experience focusing on strategic investment considerations. And there's also a time limit to that. So my apologies. The time limit is actually for the later. So here, you need to have that hands-on business knowledge, and preferably in profit and loss. Now, assuming you have 4 years of experience, you need to have a minimum of 4 years of portfolio management hours experience, or 6,000 hours within the last 15 years. So my apologies for the earlier. This is where the time limit comes in. They want to make sure that your knowledge is relatively fresh. And so the portfolio management as a practice actually do evolve very quickly. So 15 years, I'm thinking that's actually a fairly generous amount of time. This is the state of PMI certification. I actually just pulled this information from the PMI fact file moments before this recording. So you could see, according to the May-June 2020, there are about 1,041,411 PMPs. PfMP, is only 816. PgMP still below 3,000, and you can see the state of other certification. This means that if you get into the ground floor, I mean, especially portfolio, still the first 1,000 people. And with many of the PMI certification, can think of PMP, grew from, well, I became PMP at 7,000 roughly in 2003 to today over 1 million certified project managers. The application process is pretty straightforward. There are two major phases. Some people say it's three. The first is submission of the application. Here you complete the detailed application, you send it in. And the reason I say that there may be, some people call it a three-step, is because you actually can be audited. Upon submission, depending on your luck, I guess, PMI, I think they mentioned they audit about a third of the application, which then goes through a separate process of validation. But if you prepare your contacts and your experience up front and inform your contacts the reference that you're going to put them on the application, then you could probably get through the audit very quickly. I got audited twice, I think, twice in my career. And both the times I finished the audit from beginning to end within a 10-day period. And most of it is actually the mailing period. Once you do pass the audit and the completion, you get the panel review, which are other experts, program portfolio managers reviewing application. And that could take 4 weeks. There are times that it may take more than 4 weeks. Let's say your application is a bit controversial. They send to two panel reviewer. One said, yes, it's good. The other says no. Then the application goes to a third person. Of course, that requires more time. And the third person becomes essentially the adjudicator. Assuming you complete your application, then you go on to take the examination. The PMI give you 1 full year to take the exam, in which you could take 3 times, even though the third time you have to pay extra, and to pass the exam. So sort of the clock start ticking the minute they say yes. So what are some of the challenges and pitfalls of both the application and the examination? Well, let's look at the application first. One of the most common pitfalls is that your title may not actually state you are a program or portfolio manager. Or, and this can be an and/or, you feel that you may not have enough experience because your title may be program manager, but you only had the title for 2 years. My suggestion is do a more detailed analysis. The title is just one of many aspects of the ways you identify yourself. The real work is in the detail of the activities and the work that you perform. So for example, you could have a title of operation executive, right? Sounds pretty far from program portfolio manager, except in your case as operation manager, you help your company build major stores, expansion internationally, say in Canada. And over the last 20 years, you had to build many, many mega stores for your company. Now, each of those mega stores can very well be a program, even though your title may not say it's program management. The second, there is a mismatch between your practical experience and PMI mindset. And this is where I see very often that application actually get rejected in the completion test, sort of the first phase, more so than the panel review. This is because people reviewing your application may not be program and portfolio experts. They are familiar with PMI ways of looking at program portfolio, but not necessarily having that real world experience. So my suggestion here is please read the standard before you fill out the application so you could try to use their language as much as possible. Now, having said that, using their language, you don't want to be excessive too. If it doesn't fit, it just come out as awkward, and people could see you're sort of force-fitting different concepts into your experience. That's probably just as a big negative, because at the panel review, the expert who are reviewing the application will say, that doesn't sound right. The person doesn't know what he or she is talking about. So, but reading these standards, the portfolio management standard or the program management standards, will definitely help to use the right words in the languages, even the right mindset. The third is the ability to express yourself, especially when English is not your first language. Now, PMI is a global organization, and we have obviously many certified PMPs, PgMPs, PfMPs who are not, whose native language is not English. But there are two problems here, really, and I've sort of collapsed them. One is both of those applications for PgMP and PfMP has a 500-word essay. 500 words, believe it or not, is not a lot. My general recommendation for people is use at least 400 of those words. Actually, I've known people who really started trying to stretch at the outer limit, 500 words, started changing "and" to ampersand sign, using contraction just to save a couple characters. Right? But you do want to maximize that essay, that response. Make it meaty, make it detailed, make it hands-on, make it lively. If English is not your first language, I highly recommend hire a good editor. Don't go cheap on yourself. Because if the person on the other end reading it couldn't understand it, I mean, you can imagine what is the rejection rate. Right? So if you really want to be a portfolio manager, program manager, and you could argue it's not fair, it's written in English, fine, I get that. I would say get over it. Right? Right now, those are only available in English. Go hire a good English tutor or English editor to help you put together the right essays. One of the essays that my company reviewed some time ago, actually we had this problem twice, was an interesting one. The person on the phone we spoke with, clear professional, knows what he was doing around program management, definitely qualified. And when we got his essay, we hired us to review his application, it sort of became a little strange because when you read it, it's like, what is it saying? Every word makes sense. The sentences are okay, even though, it's a little awkward, you could phrase it better. The paragraph started sort of making less sense. And then in terms of the entire short little essay, it just, I don't know what it's talking about. And we went to the person, asked them to revise it. They revised it, they sent it over, essentially the same thing. What then occurred to us, what the person was doing, and received validation of that, of course, is the person has written the original essay in his native language. Then he used a translation software like Google Translate or something slightly better and translate it. So the translation, of course, works quite well at a word level, a little bit less well at the sentence level. At the paragraph level, especially on something technical like program and portfolio management, it started to losing the contextual meaning. And this is where we found like, oh my God, we can't make sense of this. That's why if you decide to hire my company to review application, which we do as a separate add-on service, we always tell our candidates now that we reserve the right to actually refuse. This is because, let's face it, it takes a lot of time to do that. So you're better off to hire a good English tutor or editor to help you put that together. The examination, what are some of the sort of pitfalls? As many of you are probably very, very experienced in your own right. You have came through, let's say, manage large programs and portfolios. But there is a gap between how you manage and how PMI see it. And this is why we always recommend people read the standard. If you want the PMI certification, after all, you need to understand PMI. Now, PMI may not say this. They'll say our exam is based on the best information out there, the common knowledge for program portfolio management. That may be true, but this implicit mindset is not something that they can easily escape. Plus, for those of you who probably know a little bit PMI, how they design the questions, they want the answer to those questions to be grounded firmly in two pretty good publications, and one of which, of course, is almost always the standard in which the exam is based on. So that's why our recommendation, yes, it is true that you do have to have the experience, and it is true you do have to have the general knowledge, but understand the standard. Otherwise, it will have a very tough time passing those exams. The second problem with the exam is what I call sort of the mentality between the correct and best answer. Now, for those of you who never took PMI exam, you probably don't have that big problem. But for those of you who took CAPM or PMP, In those exams, they're more straightforward, in my opinion, and they tend to be a correct answer and then the wrong answer. On the program and portfolio side, the exam questions are really scenario driven. It's really not about correct or incorrect. It is about finding the best, the most appropriate, the most direct response to the question at hand. So you have to read through everything, which gets to the third point. A good reader, you and I reading something casual, our favorite fiction, for example, we could probably read somewhere in the neighborhood of 200 words a minute. Some faster ones could read 250. Even the slower one probably could read around 150. But the minute we go to technical guides, that speed drops about 50%. So let's just use 100 words per minute. Now, if you think about it, the exam is 4 hours or 240 minutes. If every question is approximately, and plus the 4 multiple choice answers, is approximately 100 words. And 100 words is not a lot. I could show you that, right? That means just to read each single question takes about a minute. And there are 170 of them. Do the math, 240 minus 70, right? It gives you only 70 minutes. In that 70 minutes, this is where all the processing, thinking, guessing, analyzing happens. So for a lot of people, time is a significant issue. Our suggestion, practice. Find exam simulators out there, test banks out there, and practice as much as you can. Because the faster you can hit an answer, get to the best answer, and move on to the next one, the better off you are. Because don't forget, most adults, and I hopefully fall into that camp, we get tired mentally at about every 40 minutes. There is a fairly significant degradation of alertness. So your first 2 hours, chances are, well, first hour is probably your peak performance, deteriorates slightly between the first and the second hour, further between the second and the third hour, and of course, even more between the third and fourth hour. So if you plan that fatigue, mental fatigue into the equation, our speed is not 100 words a minute throughout the 4 hours. We may start out at 100 and probably end up only around 60, 70. So if you plan that out, we almost even have a tough time getting through the exam just sheer reading of it. So again, find a good test bank there and practice. Now, here's a plug for PM Advisory. We have very large test banks. For PfMP, we have over 1,700 active questions. For PgMP, we have somewhere in the neighborhood of 1,800 questions, and they're also expanding. Right. So definitely hire and find somebody who's reputable, who has a good exam simulator to help you build that time and speed. Other suggestions for exam preparation, and I'll be quick here, develop a good test preparation strategy. And you may want to pause just to read the slides here, right? Generally, I think this exam isn't the hardest in the world. The PfMP, PgMP, by the way, is significantly harder. You probably need at least 60 days to pace yourself. And if you have more time, of course, a little bit is more. By the way, I don't really recommend beyond 120 days. Part of the reason is then you just spend a lot less time, less concentrated study. You tend to be more forgetful. So I'd rather you have, let's say, a quality 60 days or maybe even 45 days. We even had people who came to our boot camp and went to take the test literally 2 days after the boot camp. This is an interesting story. The person came from a remote place, New Caledonia. I actually didn't even know where it is on the map. When he signed up for the course, we sent the book to his address. It actually got returned because the U.S. Post Office or the local post office couldn't actually find it. And there's no testing center on that New Caledonia, which is an island not very far from Australia. So when the person could take our boot camp, he actually wanted to go pass the test because otherwise, from where he is, he had to fly to Melbourne or Auckland, New Zealand to actually take the test. So there's sort of embedded incentives to do so. And he came to our class, didn't even study, didn't even read the standard. He was a very, very busy executive. But to his credit, He studied, paid attention, every night went back, rejected meeting with his friends, stayed in the hotel, and finished the course, spent another day studying, went to take the test on Friday, and passed. And actually passed pretty good too. He didn't get anything less than moderately proficient. So you could do it, but generally speaking, unless you're under that kind of pressure, I don't recommend it. I think give yourself 60 days is the minimum. The final preparation before the exam, by the way, I found to be extraordinarily important. Meaning the day before the exam, you want to condition your body, you want to sleep right, you want to exercise so you physically is at that peak performance. And on the date of exam, make sure you pace yourself too. I usually don't like to drive to rush hour, so there's no reason to schedule your test for 8:30 in the morning, which means you have to be there at 8 o'clock. And put it at 10 or 10:30. Pace yourself in terms of food. If you drink too much, eat too much, well, you have to go bathroom. And as many of you know, the clock doesn't stop. So and if you don't want to go hungry too, because if you go in hungry, 4 hours later, you'll just be starving, right? So figure out what works for you. Everybody's a little bit different. And other suggestions, don't leave anything blank. There is no penalty for the wrong answer. So I'm done with most of the discussion. Here, I like to spend a little time on what PM Advisory have to offer. We offer a comprehensive list of resources for PgMP and PfMP. We have real-time live boot camps in 3 different formats: traditional classroom, live virtual, something we call IntelliCamp because it's an intelligent boot camp. We try to make accelerated learning possible, and then on-site at your firm. In that case, it's customizable depending on the level of people who you have in the audience. Our general recommendations at least 3 days. If you want to learn more about project, program, or portfolio management, we have exercises, so it could be 4 days or even 5 days. All our boot camps come standard with the following: real-time instruction by certified PgMP or PfMP experts. And I like to believe I have one of the biggest group network of PgMP and PfMPs. I'm not sure that's true. At least I like to believe that, because we have many trainers who are certified in PMP, PgMP, and PfMP. So it's not me, and it's just not few. You have full access to the exam simulator. All materials in digital format: course book, workbook, job aid. You could print them out. Complimentary quick review of your application. It's not a detailed review, but we do give you thumb up, neutral or down, depending on where you want to give you some pointers. And our training, later we'll explain, comes in different support packages, but essentially up to a year. So we have one of the most comprehensive support package, I think, in the industry. In the support package you have, we throw pretty much everything we know into it. You can return to future classes, similar classes, that is. You have full access to the exam simulators. You can have access to pre-recorded. You can have email support to address your challenging question. And our support is 30 days, the base level, then goes to 60 days, 180 days, and a full year. In the full year and even 180 days are designed for those executives who are really busy, who frankly just want to buy something that they can use for a very long time so they don't have to go back to ask the company for more funding later on should they run out of the time. So it is for both convenience, and it's priced very aggressively to make that happen, but it's also designed to give you the most comprehensive set of support that we know of. We have, up until actually December of 2019, 100% pass rate. We have only one instance in which a professional who followed our methodology didn't pass the test to date, and that happened in December. So now we say we have almost 100%, 99.5. And we're still, by the way, helping that person. We're trying to figure out. So we don't really know the true reason. And even though we analyzed it quite a bit, because due to COVID-19, a lot of the test centers are closed, so the person haven't taken the test. But this is somebody we're still helping. So once we have that information, we'll update that. But our methodology up to this point is really simple. Because we have our own exam simulator, In the exam mode, the exam simulator actually comes in multiple modes, but one of the mode is the exam mode, and that is really simulating the actual exam environment, 4 hours, 170 questions. If you're able to attain 75% or higher 2 consecutive times within 7 days, and then go take the actual exam in 7 days, we, up until, like I said, December, has 100% pass rate. Now it's at 99.5%. Now, we also have money back guarantee, which I'll explain a little bit later, but there we put the threshold at 85%. Since our skin is in the game, we wanted you to be more prepared. Right? But again, by the way, 85%, it is 100% so far as we know. A couple additional features. We have money back guarantee, which means that if you actually failed the exam after achieving 85% in the exam mode 2 consecutive times within 7 days, we will pay for your re-exam fee and pay it again, ultimately up until we use up what you paid us. And if there's anything left over, we will even return that to you. So as you can see, it's a very, very guaranteed program. We also have price matching. We've been doing portfolio management, frankly, longer than anybody else we know of. I am the 8th person in the world certified in portfolio management. And my book went online right now, is the bestseller on Amazon for PfMP training, at least the one with the highest rating. I think it is the bestseller too, for the last couple of years. And the book actually went online and selling to the general public only 1.5 months after PMI released the data on who passed the exam. So what I'm saying here is we know what we are doing. Given my other involvement in PMI, portfolio management, risk management, dabble in project management on the review side of the Pinbox 7, we tend to know them really, really well. Okay. But if you do find a better price, let us know. We will do our best to beat that price. Now, there does come with a slight condition. It has to be another PMI REP that operates in the United States, right? Otherwise, that wouldn't be fair to us. So if you do find an REP in the United States offering similar courses better than our price, let us know. If we cannot beat it, if we fail to meet it, and it's not even the price, we also try to beat in terms of content, in terms of instructor, in terms of rigor. But if you can't beat it, we will grant you access to our exam simulator for free. That's our guarantee. For those who want to study independently, and there could be multiple reasons, there's a flexibility of time, for example, we do offer pre-recorded courses. We are actually right now in the work to make it not just pre-recorded, but a little bit more structured and give you a couple of additional advantages of e-learning. So we're working on that course module, but for now, we do have that pre-recorded. And for those of you who is interested, you could purchase that. We bundle with our exam simulator, provide the same amount of email support and the 30, 60, 180 days and the 365 days. We do sell a limited version of the exam simulator on the market. It is limited because obviously we would like people to join our classes. We have books and we also have LinkedIn support for them. So I think as a company, we provide more resources than pretty much anybody else we know of. Another plug about PMO Advisory. We're just not an average company. PMO Advisory, when I started, on a serious note, I actually considered starting as a nonprofit. But ultimately, I decided, you know what, Wall Street, which is only 14 miles from me, is not going to hire a nonprofit to do project management consulting or training, right? Let's face it, they won't trust a nonprofit. So that's why we became a for-profit. But we have a lot of other missions. The mission, for example, we offer fabulous resources during this pandemic, many of them for free to professionals. We have a value exchange program for those who couldn't afford our course, but willing to exchange their time to help us build the company. We're willing to offset costs from our training costs. Here, what I'm showing here is research. We are experts in project management in our own right. And one study is looking at the portfolio management landscape. That's the preliminary report that we found. Feel free to join us. Please join us. On the right, you see another research that we started since the pandemic hit. This is really looking at how professionals, organizations managing projects during the pandemic. So, and we'll have future studies depending when you listen. So visit our website. You could see more of those. Thank you for your time, and thank you for listening to us. I hope you found this presentation to be useful, highly relevant to what you seek, hopefully address some of your questions. If it doesn't, feel free to give us a call or email us at sir@pmoadvisory.com. And here, or you could call us there, and here you could see the important links to the websites. Thank you again. Have a good day.